Alrighty, everybody, happy Friday. We're going to throw it back the way we used to do it when this show was on talkradio.nyc. We went live every Friday at noon for like 2.5 years. Unfortunately, the studio closed, and now we're doing it whenever we want, but today just happened to work out that it was Friday at noon, so we'll do it throwback style. Message of the week and everything. The message this week comes from my guest and his book, which was released in 2020, and I got to dive into it a little bit this week. I'll introduce him in just a moment, but this one really stood out to me. It's something you'll hear my brother say all the time, especially on our show on Sunday, and it is, the more time I spent in front of people, the more likely I was to make a sale. As they say in martial arts, you got to get your reps in. There's no substitution for that. If there was a pill that you could take that would do it for you, it would be easy and everybody would do it. But guess what? There's not. Got to get your reps in. With that, let's welcome to the show Julian Rivera. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He is the owner of F.I.T.E Fit and most excitedly, the author of Born to Brawl, a book that was released in 2020 that talks about having a fighter's edge in business and in life. He spent a lot of time in martial arts and in business and authored a book as well, which is no small task. I'd like to talk about that too, just like the business of a book. It fascinates me.
Sure.
We're streaming live now to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. Welcome to the show, Julian. How are you today?
I'm good, Jeremiah. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited about this.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's exciting stuff. It's really interesting because when this show started, it was just a show about entrepreneurship. This was 2019. Studio was right over by Renzo's. It was on 38th Street and 8th Ave. And we would do shows in studio, and I just was like inviting all my friends on that were business owners. I was like, literally, if I fumble and like look like a fool, these are at least like cool New Yorkers with their own business, and they'll make us look good.
Sure.
And that was kind of how we started. But the interesting part was a lot of them trained. A lot of them I had met at the school that we trained at in Brooklyn, which was owned by one of Renzo's black belts. And this theme of like martial arts and business just started to like emerge, how we all learned so much. We learned how to be better business people and entrepreneurs through training martial arts. And I started to rope in, people from other arts, guys that were like Muay Thai fighters, professional boxers, or guys that just had spent a lot of time boxing, people from the military, guys that train with the Olympic judo team. And this commonality started to emerge, and that kind of like gave the show its identity, and things really started to bottleneck. And then I started to meet people like yourself, and I recently had Jordan Edwards on, who has a show called Business Jiu-Jitsu, and he's writing a book, same as yourself, called Business Jiu-Jitsu, and it's going to be a compilation of all of his interviews. And I think you did something similar with your book. And it's just great to see that community. It's like you got the business community and you got the martial arts community, but then there's this community in the middle that's business and martial arts. And it makes me feel at home because I'm not a pro fighter, not going to be, never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay at business,
Yeah. Well, you have your own business, right? You have a restaurant in Brooklyn.
Yeah. I got my hands in a few things for sure.
So that's pretty awesome. I mean, you're right in the thick of the business world,
Yes.
especially, here restaurants are one of the toughest businesses to run, and you're doing it in, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So you're doing it.
Throw a pandemic in too. Just might get that fourth stripe.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a black belt so far in business anyway.
Yeah. So you have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
But you mentioned in your book, I got through the intro, the preface, and the first chapter. And I think like there's enough just in that first chapter for like, that's one show. Like each chapter could literally be like a podcast show, maybe two when we get to Mike Jarmillo.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I get a lot of good feedback on Mike's chapter. A lot of good feedback on that one from the business aspect, especially because he's a entrepreneur as well.
Right, he's done it both, and what a charismatic person. Like I've been taking his classes for about 1.5 years now, and man, he gets you pumped.
He does. He's amazing. He's an amazing instructor. And I met him, man, at the beginning of my business, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I should say my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey. He was at the beginning of it. I met him through my dad, and he called me when I was a white belt. So excited to hear that I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and embarking on this journey. And one of the things he asked me was, have you fell in love with it yet? And I emphatically said yes, and he was so excited. And we talked about what his, aspirations were. He was still competing at the time. And I think he had gone on to win the Europeans shortly after that conversation. But he was always encouraging and always telling me to get down to Renzo's. And it took me 10 years to get down there, but I got down there eventually. And trying to get down there more often because he's such a great instructor.
Yeah. He's changed not only my game, but like the way I think about life. His systematic approach and his charisma, those two together, I feel like it's a superpower. It's really cool. Great to be around. And the people that he's surrounded by as well, just fantastic people, both martial artists and just people.
Absolutely.
I love how in your book you were you just glossed over it real quick. You were like, yeah, I did a little karate, grew up around boxers. I grew up in the South Bronx in the 70s and 80s, but we got into scraps. But moving right along, I've spent time in the South Bronx. It's a little more than that.
Well, it wasn't the South Bronx, but it was the Bronx. It was actually
where were you at?
I was raised on Decatur Avenue in the Bronx, which is last stop on the D train, 205th Street, and that area, Bainbridge area. And so it was a very diverse neighborhood, and I had gone through a few different ethnicities and cultures, so it was very very diverse. And being that it was the Bronx, and there's the whole aspect of the Bronx was burning back in the 80s. That's the time that I grew up in the Bronx, and hip hop was big. I remember graffiti being all over the place. We used to break dance in the street with the cardboard, bring the cardboard out and break dance on the street. And it was a tough neighborhood, but it wasn't anything that, looking back, it wasn't like I didn't feel unsafe. Mm-hmm. It was a time when kids could play out in the street, and there were eyes everywhere. So, somebody's parents were watching, and we'd get in a little trouble here and there, but it wasn't anything that where I ever felt unsafe. And scraps were just part of growing up, right? So you got people that want to pick fights, or people that want to bully you, and you learn quick that you can't back down. And if you put up a fight, usually that's how you stand your ground, and then they leave you alone after that, because bullies typically don't want to fight, right? They want the easy prey. So you just got to stand up to them. Sometimes you take your lumps, but that's part of life, right? So
that part has not gone away, has it?
No. But I remember growing up and having slap boxing in the street. That was very typical. We used to test our hands, slap box with buddies. And I had a friend down the street who used to have two pairs of boxing gloves, and he used to come out once in a while with the boxing glove, and we test the skills with the boxing glove. One time, I remember giving him a bloody nose, and his sister didn't like that, so his sister came to beat me up. But luckily, I had my cousin who was a female, and she was also bigger than me at the time, and she had my back. So there was a little friendly rivalry thing going on. But yeah, that's just part of being in the neighborhood.
Right, exactly. It's funny you were describing in your book, like King of the Hill and stuff like that, just like the games that especially as boys we play. And I think one of the great things about especially jiu-jitsu is it takes you back to that because you get to do it all over again, right? You're doing it in
Yeah.
like, I don't know how old you were when you started training, but I was almost 40. it
Okay.
was, it was, I was in good shape. When I started, I was very athletic. I grew up in an athletic family too, so that was always, always just a part of our lives. But jujitsu is a different is a different beast. But I always say it's like the fountain of youth because you get to do that shit all over again, right? It's like you and your buddies, king of the mountain, and
Yeah.
you get done with the session and you feel like a kid again for like 20 minutes. And
Yep.
then the adrenaline dump happens.
Yep.
All the creaky knees come back and everything. But you get
Yeah.
that little peek into the past. And you're like, I
It's
remember.
usually the shower when it all hits me. It's like in the shower, it's like, oh man, I'm feeling everything now. But
Some
yeah.
Sometimes I'm good through the shower. I get on the train and I'm like, yeah, usually I'll stop and get like an acai or a smoothie or something like that just to replenish the body. And I get on the train and I'm feeling good and I sit down. It's about 30 minutes to my stop and I go to stand up and I'm like, I am not the same person I was half an hour ago.
Nice.
stiff
Yeah.
as stiff as a board, but I am still super grateful for it. And that's one of the, I think, we'll list, I'm sure, many of the benefits of jujitsu, but that's one of them where you come out and you just feel like a kid again, man. You feel like all the things that were bothering you before, you just you just saved your life. So like
Right.
multiple times, you feel completely different.
It's funny you said that it's the fountain of youth, and I use that same expression. I use that same terminology. I started jujitsu in my early to mid 30s, and so later, and I
Mhm.
wish I had done it sooner, but
Same.
no time like the present to start. Right? I always tell people it's never too late, never too early to start. But I'm glad I found it because it gave me that, like you said, that youthful competitiveness that I was missing. I started jujitsu because I wanted to do something besides lifting weights and running on a treadmill, and something that was kind of getting mundane after a while. And I, saw the UFC craze. I grew up with that, and Hoist Gracie and saw what he was doing, and I was like, "What is this jujitsu thing? Let me go see what it's like." So I went and saw a class. I tried it, and I was hooked right away. So it was a blessing to have found that, and for it to be such a passion and have a profound impact on my life. It was a gift to have
Yeah.
that I gave myself, and it's one of the best gifts I've ever given to myself. So,
Totally agree. 100%. And pointing that out about, what it does to you physically, you have to push, you engage yourself in things that you haven't often in a long time. I know, when you first start as a white belt, they have you doing like animal crawls, bear walks and crab walks and forward rolls and backward rolls. And it's crazy to see a grown adult who, was likely capable of doing it, but they're down on their knees and they got to do a forward roll and they're scared out of their mind because they're like, man, I haven't done this in like 30, 40 years. And like the consequences are pretty minimal, but it doesn't matter. You gotta take that first step. And there was something, I think it was in the first chapter of your book. I don't know if it was you or the gentleman you interviewed for that first chapter, but it, in that chapter, you said the body will comply with what the mind sees.
yeah,
And
that was him. That was Johnny Lopez, who's
yes.
currently the number one ranked flyweight in New England, and
Mhm.
he's fighting tonight actually for CES MMA. So shout to Johnny.
Nice.
Yeah, he's fighting tonight in Hartford, Connecticut, for CES MMA. It might be live streamed. I
Man,
believe it is.
I'm gonna look that up and see if they do. Is he? So he's not. He's not a prelim then? If he's number one ranked,
No,
he's got to
no,
be one of the main
he's
card.
a co-main. He's a
Yeah,
co-main. Yeah,
dope.
yeah, it's pretty dope. I think it's gonna be on UFC Fight Pass.
Okay,
I'm almost sure.
nice.
Um, so check him out if you can. He's a good guy, man. He's just one of the nicest people I ever met. But he's got that thing, a switch where he can turn it on inside the cage, and he's a great martial artist. And yeah, he said the body will do what the mind sees, and he made a lot of good points. That being them, but one of the most profound things that he said was anger is a chaotic mind, right? And if you've ever thought about when you're angry or upset and you act on that emotion, how chaotic that act is, and the results are usually not good. So his thing is to not act in that mindset, to try to clear the mind and get it in a more positive mind frame before acting. And I think that was something that has stuck with me.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes with what the body will go, what the mind sees. So he uses visualization and as a tool to look at what's going to happen during, like his fight tonight. I'm sure he has some visualization practices in preparation, and he likes to put himself in bad situations in his mind and then kind of be his own hero and get out of those situations and come out victorious. And so if he's ever in a bad situation, his mind is like, I've been here before, so he's able to navigate the real scenario based on his visualization practice. So
that was one of the most powerful takeaways for me from that. And that, it's helped me a lot in business. And it's something that, do you know Jamie Crowder, the guy that runs the MMA program at Renzo's?
I don't know.
He's from Liverpool. He's a little guy about my size, but
okay.
mean as a cuss. But the nicest guy too. He's like super sweet, but like, yeah, you do not want to cross him.
You always got to watch the little guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And the quiet ones too.
Yes. He's little, but he's not quiet.
Okay.
One of the things I love about taking his classes is he's always got just a super deep martial arts message for you in every class. There's not a class that goes by where, it's never like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, back and forth. Now some positional training, now like full sparring. Okay, great job, guys. Like, see you later. There's always a message. And he talks about visualization a lot. A lot of the times we'll finish a very hard sparring day with sprints just to push yourself that much farther. And then he says, I know it's awful. It's the worst. You just got your ass beat for 25 minutes. And then you're running circles around the main room and it's slippery because, it's slippery from sweat, but also like the water pipes just leak water all the time. And like dudes just eat it, but he's like faster. And then there's like anywhere from like 20 to 60 seconds of victory position walk. And he's like, when you hit that, you're so exhausted. But he's like, you cannot let anybody else know that. You have to change that. You have to flip the script in your own mind so that your body complies, and you have to show everybody that you just won. Like, especially if it goes to decision, he's like, a lot of decisions can be made in that final moment, because if your guy that you were fighting is also exhausted and he shows it and he drops and you're walking around with your hands overhead, he's like, you just always have to envision victory. What does it look like? You have to envision entering the cage, all of it. And he says the mind doesn't know the difference between you visualizing it and you actually doing it. So when I read that in your book, I was like connecting these things. Like, I believe it. It's very powerful. And I've had to do the same many times with business. Restaurants are always, especially on eggshells. And I remember those first few times I had to envision like what failure looked like, and it scared me. And I was just like, I ran from it in my own mind. I was like, no, I'm not ready for this. But it kept, it just was inevitable. It just kept coming up. There were so many times where like the blade was at the throat, man. I'm like, oh my God, this could be it. And I had to visualize what are the exit strategies. And like, it didn't happen. Monday would come around. I'm like, wow, we made it. And then, several months later, again, I'm in this place again, man. This is dark. This sucks. But like, and now after doing it like dozens and dozens of times, I feel equipped to deal with whatever the outcome may be, especially after the pandemic. It was just like, all right, you could throw whatever you want at me now. It could be like a comet, like a fireball could shoot out of the sky and land into the restaurant. I'd be like, yeah, of course. Right. This is what we're going to do now. Okay. So I think like more than anything, that is probably like the biggest takeaway for a fighter, but anybody, anything in life. I mean, I'm a parent too, and I have to visualize like what are my children's lives going to be like? What are their potential failures, and how am I going to respond, and what does life look like after that? So these are not just these are timeless, I think, lessons. It can apply to anybody, a parent, a lover, a husband, a mother, a father, a son, you know, anybody, and a business owner too. I think it'll help you tremendously in business.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things we get from martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu or wrestling, grappling arts, is being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right? So when you have a 200-pound guy, I'm 150 pounds, but I roll with,
Same.
I tend to roll with just about anybody. So you know, having a 200-pound guy on your side control, you know, and you're on the bottom, that sucks. But you get comfortable being, okay, this is what it is. How am I going to deal with it? All right, let me get a little frame. All right, now let me get a leg back in. All right, now let me get my head away. All right, now I got my guard back. I'm okay now. You know, so same thing with life. You know, you this pandemic and everything that we've all gone through. It's like, okay, that happened, but what are we gonna do? We just got to deal with it. You know, life throws shit at you all the time. You know, all the time. That's a constant. The only constant is change, right? So you just got to be comfortable with knowing that things are gonna happen. It's not always gonna go as planned, but you got to be ready to adapt and change and take advantage of opportunities when they're there.
And I think the big wake up call for people was the pandemic, because, you know, society, especially in New York, you know, people were soft, people were comfortable, people thought everything was going to go super smooth all the time, and it brings up a really important topic that I think a lot of people don't spend too much time with. As growing business owners and entrepreneurs, we're kind of forced into it if we experience any level of success, you know, if our wheels are turning anywhere above just like a murmur, you fuck up, you know, you fail, things happen. And it's really been brought to light to me lately that, like, what a plan really means. And we were talking about it yesterday. Do you know Rob Constance, Black Rob, Big Rob at Hintos? Yeah, he's the best. I love working with him.
He's a character.
He's a total character. And I've been, you know,
I saw him in a movie once.
Oh yeah, no, he's all over the place, man.
Yeah, I saw him in some movie. I was like, oh, that's Black Rob.
He's the man, bro. So he says this always. He says, you know, I enter each attempt with an equal expectation of failure and success. So like, if you succeed, great, but I'm always prepared for it to not work. And I have to have a plan. And it made me realize, this just really occurred to me this week, like, a plan is really just a response to failure. Because if we knew we weren't going to fail, we wouldn't need a plan. We just go execute, walk away, everything's great. You know, we'd walk in the room, we'd submit everybody, no problem. We'd go set up shop, make all the money, and be like, ha ha ha. But that's not reality. To quote Mike Jarmillo, that's not real.
Right.
You know, he says that all the time. So I've been really thinking hard on a plan lately, and like what it really means. And this guy had me go through like his name is Lance Knob. He's been on the show many times. He's in New Jersey. He started out as a physical therapist, PhD in physical therapy, opened a number of physical therapy clinics, like almost lost them, you know, and out of his own failures, he developed this, you know, business plan model. And we started on it a couple of years ago, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what a plan is. And we just went over it the other day. He was like, I just want to read to you what you put down, what you said like 2 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Because it was like, I clearly had no idea why I needed a plan. But when you consider, like, you visualize what failures look like, and like the real failures, like what are the catastrophic outcomes? Not just like, oh, I slipped on a banana peel and skinned my knee. Like, no, like big failures. Like, what are you most afraid of? You start to devise your plan around that. Like, how do I address this? Okay, that's one part of it. Well, what about this? Okay, we can try this. And like you said, it might not always work out as you plan, but as long as you're responding in some way, like, to use your analogy, that 200-pound guy, the guy that got me, he got mounted today by a Russian who's like 220. Ooh,
nice.
Not fun.
Good times, huh?
yeah, great times. He made me fart. You know, he got on so solid. You just like, that's always good. You know, It happens. And I thanked him for it.
Shit happens, right? Absolutely.
But, you know, what you can't do is just lay there. Like, that's
Right.
really not the option. You can't just lay there. You have a plan in place. I'm like, okay, I'm in a knee elbow escape. Didn't work. But something worked. I ended up in some form of ashigarami, which is not the best idea with somebody that with that weight differential. But I that led to something that really worked. And I actually got out and I submitted him. And we're the same level. We started at the same time and everything. This dude puts it to me. But it wasn't that I had this foolproof plan. Like, I did it, you know.
Right.
Like my first attempt didn't work, but it put me in a position for success. And you mentioned opportunity. And I always think of like opportunity is the intersection of preparation and, or no, I'm sorry. What was it? Or luck or like, what is it? Luck or
luck is the intersection of preparation and
opportunity.
Right.
So like I done all this preparation. I saw the opportunity and I blasted. And I was like, oh, okay. Thank God. I got myself in a better position. And as an analogy for the business owners, and I saw it all throughout your book, like just even the little bit I read so far, there were just so many of those anecdotes and those lessons. And it's great. I love that the first chapter comes from an MMA fighter because that's when you really understand. Like I'd done jiu-jitsu for 6 years before I stepped into an MMA class. And I'd done 6 years of striking too. You know, I was even a striking instructor. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. I got my ass beat. I mean, beat. Even last week, I got the worst beating of my life in MMA class.
It's different.
It's different. It's different.
I think all jiu-jitsu, no, sorry to cut you off, but just going along those lines, I think all jiu-jitsu practitioners should take some MMA classes and see how their jiu-jitsu fares in the MMA arena. You know, with it changes your grappling. It does. It changes it in a way where it becomes more practical. And you realize some positions you wouldn't want to do in MMA. You know, so just as something as simple as closed guard, you don't want to be in closed guard too long in an MMA fight, right? Because you're going to get pounded on. So it changes your jiu-jitsu to be more strategic, I believe, when you do MMA. So it's good good that you're doing that.
Yeah. And it's the real deal. It's like, you know, they teach you to bridge and jiu-jitsu and you're like, When someone mounts you and has 4 7-ounce gloves on and they start punching you in the face, you bridge for your fucking life. You're like, oh, that's a bridge. Cause you do your bullshit jujitsu bridge a couple times and they don't come off of you. They're still on top of you or they take you back and they're still punching you. And then you learn to bridge. You learn to you're like, okay, now I understand what a bridge is. And it puts everything in context. And I think it's the same in business. It's like, you know, you can study business, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts and everything, but you have to be in it and open your bank account and see like, there's no money. And you got all these expenses coming up and like, you're like, okay, now I'm a businessman. I got to get out of this. And that's when I think you really earn your stripes in business. That it comes from those uncomfortable situations and that pressure. And it has to be ongoing, right? Like just like with training, it's not like they pressure you and then you get your black belt. I mean, you would know I don't have a black belt yet, but right. It's not like you get your black belt and you're like, okay, there's no more pressure. I'm good now. I can just like do what I want. Hold on. You're muted for some reason.
How's that?
There you go. Yeah. Somehow just got muted.
Your frame froze your video.
Oh, okay. Reason. Sorry. Yeah. Got to pay the bill.
Pay that energy bill or cable bill, whatever it is.
Were you able to hear what I said?
Yeah. So I heard what you said about the pressure with the black belt being diminished or something along those lines. And it's totally the opposite. You know, when you get your black belt, it's much more pressure, actually, I believe. I think purple belt was my favorite so far. Yeah. You know, I've been a black belt 3 years now, but going back, I felt like purple belt was where I grew the most as a BJJ practitioner. I kind of developed my own game, and there was a lot less pressure. You can give the brown belts and black belts a hard time, and sometimes even tap them. But if they tap you, you're you're a purple belt, right? So they're supposed to
It's
get you.
supposed to. Yeah.
Exactly. But as a black belt, you go against some of these purple belts now. The game is changing all the time. Purple and brown belts giving me a hard time sometimes, and there's that part that says it's not supposed to happen, but then there's the other part that says why not? You're still human. You're a black belt, but you're still learning like everyone else, and you still have to show up and improve and grow, and that's even more magnified when you're a black belt.
Yeah.
So it's more pressure because now you have a target. Everybody
Right.
wants to tap the black belt, so you got to show up every time.
And the same is true of successful business owners. Like you get to this point, you're like, all right, I've set up shop where, we've dealt with the onslaught of like initial problems and everything. Now we're cruising, but it doesn't go away. Like in fact, I think that the ante goes up because
Yep.
people see that success, people see that money, and sometimes they come after it,
Yeah.
in a number of different ways.
Absolutely. I think anytime you're successful in MMA or jujitsu or in business, you got people coming after you. They want a piece of what you got. It's lonely at the top, as they
Yep.
say. So you gotta realize that you gotta work harder when you reach that success that you're going for. It's not okay. I'm good. I'm set now. No, now you gotta work even harder to maintain and reach the next level. So yeah, that's part of life. Anytime you reach a pinnacle, you got to work to stay there. That's the king of the hill, right? With the kids
Yep.
when we were kids. That's the whole premise, the king of the hill.
That's great. I was going to tie it right back into that opening quote. So, like for yourself, you described, hustling, selling mixtapes in the barbershop and everything, which is great.
Yep.
I actually I'm a musician too. I studied music and I was a freelancer for a while, so I know that hustle and that struggle too. Walking around with a stack of CDs trying to sell them to people,
Yep.
and then they were all like, "Yeah, I have iTunes now," and I'm like, What's iTunes?" I remember it was like 2008 or 2009. I just pressed 1,000 CDs. I got like a great deal on them, and I was like, "All right, we're gonna sell all these motherfuckers." And I'll go around, and everybody's like, "Yeah, I just have iTunes now," and I'm like, "Okay, well, just you could put the disc in your drive and upload it." And they're like, "I don't have a disc drive anymore," and I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah. Yeah. Now they make you don't see them anymore. You
They're
just don't.
gone, man. You
They're
got to buy an
gone.
external one. It's crazy, but you yourself, you describe, getting offered a position in sales, and you were
Yeah.
like, I know what I'm doing, and you got out there, and it was like nothing at first,
No.
but you realize the more you did it, the more your opportunities for successes were, and then you experienced growth and did quite well, and now you have your own business. Is that, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That's pretty correct. That's the trajectory. So I started selling those CDs as a kind of a side hustle. And I met this guy, like you said, in the barbershop. He said, you're pretty good speaking with people, and you can articulate yourself, and you have a good personality. Why don't you come interview for this position? So I went and interviewed. I got the job. This was outside sales. This is business to business sales. So I'm talking to business owners now. It's totally different from talking to people on the street selling CDs. So, but and I found that business owners are very busy, and unless you have something very compelling to say, they're not going to listen to you. They don't want to waste their time. So, it took a while. I, it was hard. It was hard. The first 6 months was just learning what to say and how to say it. So I learned what to say easily, but I found that how you say it is much more important. And speaking with enthusiasm and some passion were the most important things, right? If you're not enthusiastic, other people aren't gonna be interested in what you have to say. So you have to be excited about what you have to say, so other people get excited about what you have to say, and then asking the right questions, because sales is all questions. And typical to your podcast, right? You come up with these questions, and that's what the podcast is based around. So a sales call is the same thing. You have to have predetermined questions to engage the customer and find out what their pain points are, and then sell to those pain points. So it took me 6 months to learn that process, but once I learned it, I just found that it was a numbers game, and the more people I talked with, the more success I had, and it compounded. And then I found a similar position with another company, and I've been with several companies in several different industries, and the sales process has been pretty much the same throughout. Find the customer pain points, sell to those pain points, provide a solution. So I've been able to use the same process and have success with it all along, thankfully. And then in 2017, I started my own business, F.I.T.E Fit, which is a martial arts wellness company, and I wanted to do more corporate wellness. So I was using some of my sales skills to get into these corporations that had wellness programs. That was an emerging industry, and I wanted to get in there and spread martial arts as a way of staying healthy, right? So I found some success with that, and then the pandemic hit, so that kind of put a squash on the corporate wellness, because I was going to corporations that had gyms on site and teaching classes at these gyms. So I started doing some video sessions, and then I kind of pivoted recently to teaching more self-defense classes at other gyms, as they started to open up and wanted to provide other programs to their members. So that's what I've been doing more recently, and also tapping into the public school system, and starting to work with some kids in after school programs. So yeah, the business is still continuing to grow and evolve, and I had to pivot and make some adjustments, but it's still going. So we'll see where it goes. But my passion is to help people live healthier lives through martial arts, and that's what the business is based around.
That's amazing. Very amazing. Where do you see that kind of wellness in corporations bubble right now? Is it like, has it burst? Is it coming back? Is it just kind of on the back burner? Because that's something I've thought a lot about too. You're the first person I've actually met that's put something together that services that, but just in my own like mind, laying in bed at night, thinking of different ways to utilize this. And my experience in business and martial arts, I've concocted a similar kind of scenario. Is that, you think it's a thing that will resurface as these companies kind of pull everybody back together?
I think it will. I think it already is starting to. It's gotten more digital.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of apps, and online programs that people can follow, and I think that's kind of where that industry is already headed, and is probably going to grow in that sector, in the digital sector. But if I were to focus on that again, I would probably target insurance companies, knowing what I know now, because insurance companies kind of dictate those programs within corporations, right? So the insurance companies have the end with because they provide the health plans for the employees. So if the program is coming through the insurance company, it's more likely to be implemented. And so that's the way I would approach the corporate wellness sector.
That's
in the
huge.
future.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. What a discovery. Very
Yeah.
cool. And you had done a stint in ad sales as well, right?
Yeah, so that was my first job in sales, as a sales professional, was advertising sales.
And what was it exactly? I'm curious, because I did ad sales for a little while too.
So this is going back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was the same for me.
Phone directories.
What was
So
it?
phone directories, yellow
Oh,
pages.
yeah.
This
Most
is
people don't know what that is. Can you
those
explain
people
what the
don't.
yellow pages are?
So the yellow pages is a phone book. So before Google,
So you
all,
kids,
yeah, all you
it was like
kids,
Google, but it was a book and it was
it was
yellow, and you had to
exactly.
do the searching.
You had
You
to
actually had to read.
let your fingers do the walking was the slogan, and you had to go through the phone book, and there was different. So if you wanted a plumber, you look under P for plumber, and there was a bunch of different ads for plumbers in that section. So you would I would sell advertising to people who
Companies.
needed to be to companies that needed to
Yeah.
be listed in this phone directory. So it was uh, an actual book you
Yeah.
looked in to find businesses when you needed them.
So
And
you were just doing print.
print advertising,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the company that I was with was called Yellow Book. They don't exist anymore. The
Yeah.
company's called Haibu now. They're still around actually. So they pivoted and started doing more Google AdWords,
Mhm.
building websites. They got into doing digital, and I was there for part of that transition, but I didn't see the transitioning happening fast enough, so I got out of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I did a stint for BET.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was in their ad sales division.
That's cool.
Yeah, they were selling spots on their shows, and it was a total trip. The office at the time was in the Viacom building. This was like early 2000, like 2006, 2005, 2006. They were in the Viacom building in Times Square up at the top. It was a trip. It was a total trip. Did it
That's
for a
awesome.
year. I learned a lot, but I was like, yeah, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's intriguing.
It is, and it's a grind, right? Selling advertising is a grind because it's intangible. People don't. You're not getting a physical product when you're buying
Yeah.
advertising. You're buying something that you can't see, touch, or feel, but you're buying it off a return on investment. So I learned to sell based on ROI, return on
Right.
investment, and that's what made me successful in that industry. And I learned um, a lot about people skills and you know people buy you first. That's the
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, that if they
Well,
don't like you, they're not going to buy
yep.
from you no matter what you have.
We're always pitching to 98.6 degrees.
Yep.
It's a person at the other end. Until the robots take over, we're all in the people business.
Yeah. i
Um,
think i think in along those lines there always will be a place for professional salespeople, because people are people, right? And
yep.
unless robots can feel like we feel, um, then there'll always be a place for human interaction when it comes to professional
Yeah.
sales.
Or if they just get a hold of the money, if the ATM machines just say, yeah, no, it's our money now.
Yeah.
They're like, you got to pitch to me. I'm a robot. You got to be damn good, boy.
You gotta be damn good. Damn
Well,
good.
the other thing that brings up is that, oh, hey, we have some questions and comments. This is great. I forgot to check. Nick Lozano says hi. He's a blue belt in Washington D.C., also a podcast host and a business guy. My buddy
Hey, Nick.
Andrew said, can Julian turn up his lighting? And nice to see you
Yeah.
too.
Nice to see. Nice to see you, Andrew.
Andrew said, what's a yellow page?
I said.
Andrew, he's old. Don't let him fool you. Andrew, it's like the Black Page by Frank Zappa, only cooler. He's actually a world-renowned jazz saxophonist. He's amazing. He's been on the show also. Great dude.
Oh,
And a
awesome.
martial artist. Yeah, he did taekwondo for a while.
Thanks for joining, Andrew.
And he's been on to talk about that as well. One of the advantages I think for people that actually work in advertising is, especially if you go on to be a business owner, is that you learn the importance of advertising and marketing, and hopefully have a little insight into how to do it better. So, like I said, we were selling network spots, which still happens, but everything got super digital real fast. This was like I was doing that right before Facebook came out while I was at that job, because I remember setting my account up while I was while I was there. Oh, we got another guy, Kareem Jackson, checking in. American entrepreneur in the Philippine Islands, watching you guys. Kareem, thank you, brother. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Really awesome.
nice
That's
to
from
see you, Kareem.
checking in from
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
that's awesome.
Um,
I
and
want to.
you know,
Philippines is on my list. I want to head out there
yeah. Oh my
sometime.
God, so cool out there. They got some indigenous martial arts of their own. It's pretty badass too.
Yeah, what is it, Kali?
Kali, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't want to just hang out with the Kali guy. Um, you mentioned ROI, and that's like so hard to determine from selling print material or spots on a network. Like my buddy he was in advertising up until everything shut down, and his dad was too, and his dad sold radio ads going back. This guy's like our age,
wow.
so his dad was doing it a generation before. His dad used to say, we know 50% of advertising works, we just don't know which 50%.
50% works 99% of the time, right?
But now you can really gauge, you can really determine your ROI. He said, I'm too old to know the yellow pages. And thank you for doing the stream. Thank you, Andrew. Um, now it's much easier digitally to really assess your ROI because you can
Sure.
encode everything
Right.
and see what people are responding to. So you were out there in like the dark ages selling ROI when there was like hardly any way to determine. So you were really selling yourself then,
Yeah.
in a major way.
Yeah, there was a lot of faith selling. Um, we had a few metered lines. So what those
Mm,
were we'd put like an 800 number in somebody's ad, and if people called the 800 number, we could track the
right.
call. So we were able to determine how many calls an ad generated through those um, metered lines. So that was a good selling tool. But even so, you don't know the conversion rate.
Right.
So yeah, it's a hard thing to sell, and it's better to be much more conservative than to, you know, exaggerate because people
Right.
can see through that, right? So um, I think with ROI, if you're conservative in your numbers, people are more likely to actually grasp that concept.
Well, and as martial artists too, we spend a lot of time getting honest with ourselves. And once you
Yeah,
do that, it's hard to fake it, right? Once you've like
yeah,
encountered that, you've been exposed to that, it becomes like a daily routine. I think it starts to show up. I mean, it certainly did for me, in business where they would just, honesty just became paramount.
right,
Being able to admit your mistakes, whether it's to your staff or to your clients or service providers or whatever, and just smooth out those rough edges, because at the end of the day, you need those people, right?
right.
You need staff to help you execute. You need clients and customers. Otherwise, nobody going to pay the bills, and I think those relationships, that was another huge takeaway for me from martial arts, like just learning how to like communicate better and just get down to the point, like
Yeah,
stop beating around the
absolutely.
bush, stop putting off that uncomfortable conversation. It has to happen.
Right.
Like there's no way around it. There's not going to be any good outcomes if you just keep avoiding it. Like just get in there and do it. Sure, it's going to suck, but it's no worse than having the Russian guy on top of you.
Right. Absolutely. If you can deal with that, you can deal with almost anything for sure.
So you ended up publishing this book in 2020.
Yeah.
I'm really curious because I like books. I like to read them. I like
So do I.
writing, and I feel like I have so much to share. Someone asked me once, like, would you want to write a book? And I was like, yeah, it sounds great. I have no idea how to do it. But someone once asked me too, do you want to host a podcast? And I was like, yeah, but I have no idea how to do it. And here we are, almost 3 years later, and it's going well. So
That's
what kind
awesome.
of like, thank you. What kind of inspired that? And like, what were your first steps? Because that in itself is like, you have to kind of treat it like a business, right? If you want it to be successful.
Right. 100%. It is a business, if you want it to be successful. And my mission with writing the book was in line with my mission with Fight Fit, which is to help other people through martial arts. And I love books. I love to read. I'm always learning it through books and trying to educate myself with financial literature, self-help literature, mindset literature. And I read even some fiction you can get, good lessons out of. So I wanted to write a book that could help people, and I thought I saw a lot of correlations, as you know, and what you're doing with your podcast, between martial arts, business, and life. And I wanted to express it in book form. And I thought I got inspiration, full disclosure, from other books. From one of the books that I've has had a big impact on my life is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that's a classic. And what he did was interview some of the moguls, the financial moguls of his time, like Andrew Carnegie, and he interviewed these people and found what characteristics and traits they portrayed that made set them apart and made them successful. And I thought I could do something similar with martial artists, finding what characteristics and traits they portrayed that could help people in life, in business. Even if you're not a martial artist, I felt some of the concepts apply to everything. So I went about interviewing several people with this task in mind. And then I got all the interviews. That was the first step. I recorded all the interviews, and then I outlined the book. Just like we did in English in high school, right?
Right.
Formulate an outline. So I outlined the book, and then I listened to all the recordings, and I determined which chapters kind of fit where and what concepts could each interview portray the most. So I put that in an outline format, and then once I had all the interviews, I got to writing, and it took about 2 years total. And so it wasn't just writing, listening to interviews and jotting down the word for word. I try to get the interviews almost to the word as much as I could. To make some grammatical changes and things like this, but I also used my own insight and my own interpretation of what the interviews mean and how they can help people, and I put that in each chapter as well. And after that, after the book was complete, it was time to find an editor. So I hired an editor. I also hired somebody to make the book cover, the graphics.
Great design too. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for the hoodie. I'm getting one.
Awesome, awesome, good. We'll get on that. That's actually a good idea. Thanks for giving me that little tip, because I think that the cover, the logo could be a good marketing tool. So that's actually a really good idea.
Yep.
Great minds think alike. But the cover has a cool little story. So I met somebody from Greece at an IBJJF tournament in New York, and he was traveling. I think he had just come from California, and he was in New York visiting and competing and training. And I don't think he did well in that particular tournament, but he kind of expressed that feelings of, man, I should have done better. He was down on himself, and I was like, dude, you're freaking traveling the world, training jiu-jitsu and competing. What's better than that, man? This is just one little setback, but you're gonna keep traveling and training and competing, and you're gonna go back to Greece, and you're gonna be a much better competitor and athlete and person because of all this things that you're doing for your personal growth. And he took that to heart. And when I made a post about looking for a graphic designer, and he knew somebody, and he said, this is my gift to you for what you said to me after that day at that tournament in New York. So the person he hooked me up with made the design, and that was a nice kind of karma, a good karma story. So that was pretty cool. But after the design, after the editing, it was just like a lot more editing. So the editing took almost as long as the writing. So it's just like constant editing. And finally got it, in edited to where I felt it could be published. And I shopped it around to publishers. And if you know anything about getting a book published, it's a long process. You have to go typically through an agent. I wasn't working with an agent, but I did some research on self-publishing, and it used to be a thing where self-publishing was looked at, oh, you couldn't get published, so you had to self-publish. But no, that's not the case anymore. Like, it's becoming a very valid way of publishing a book. And it just seems so much easier
Yeah.
because even going through a publisher, they want you to do all this marketing on your own. So I was like, if I'm going to do that, I'll just publish it myself. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up publishing it myself through Kindle Direct Publishing, which has a pretty good platform for publishing books.
Right. Like you said, there's so much less friction in getting it out there. Same with music. You know, if you want to produce your
Right.
own, you don't need a label or any of that stuff anymore. You can just do it on your own. It might reduce your reach initially, but like you said,
Right.
if you're going to do your own marketing and everything, might as well. Like, if you have experience in marketing, just grab that bull by the horns. Most of the people that I've spoken to, you know, over the last like year or so that have come on, that I've had a number of authors. Most of them have gone the self-publishing route, but you did the writing yourself.
Yeah. Yep. I did all the writing myself.
Right.
Yep. And that kind of goes along
any
with my
previous,
music.
like, did you see? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any formal writing training, I guess. But from the music, I wrote. I'm a lyricist, so I was used to writing. I keep about 5 journals for different aspects of life. So I like writing. I find it very therapeutic, and yeah. So I am practiced in writing with no formal training. This was the most formal thing I've ever written. But I'm happy with the way it came out. I have good feedback, you know, and it's a different world with social media and being able to self promote. It's and you know, your show is a great platform. Thank you for having me on. This, you know, this is the new world where we're able to reach a wider audience on our own.
It's great. Like I said, when we were just in the studio, you know, I was kind of snobbish, and people would reach out to me like on LinkedIn or whatever, and be like, "Hey, can I come on your show?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to be in New York. Like, I only do it in person." And it was limiting. I mean, I guess I needed that at that time because it would have been just overwhelming. But once everything shut down, it was amazing what happened, and it put me into contact. I mean, it's the reason I'm at Renzo's right now, because Renzo was one of the first people I reached out to, and I was like, "Hey, you want to come on my show?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I was like, "Holy shit!" You know?
That's awesome.
And he was like, "Hey, we're open. Come train." You know, like he knew, you know, I trained one of his black belts, so he's, you know, was familiar. He's like, "Yeah, get your ass in here." And I was like, "Oh my god, here we go!" And like, now we're buddies, and I'm just like, this is crazy. So it is.
Insane.
It's really insane. So basically what you're saying is, like, you figured out, you knew how to write a book based off of the outline form we learned in like middle and high school.
Exactly.
So there you go, kids. Stop busting your English teacher's balls.
Exactly.
This you never know. My wife's a teacher. She's New York City Department of Ed high school math teacher, and the kids are always like, "When am I going to use this?" Like, you have no fucking idea. Just shut up and do your work.
Just shut up and do your work.
Get your reps in.
That's
crazy.
Awesome. Yeah,
So
no, it was a great it was a learning process too.
Of course.
You know, it's something I had to figure out as I went along. Like we said before, you know, you start where you stand and you just figure it out.
But you had a plan. You had an outline.
I did, and it had to vary sometimes. But you know, I had a plan. I did have a plan.
So. And then so after you got it written, the editing, you said, I know it takes a long, long time, and then self-publishing, and boom, away we go. Yes, Andrew, my wife still teaches. She still teaches outlines. She does that. She does it for math, not for English. Her English is deplorable. Oh my God. Stick to the math, baby. I got derailed. The book is called Born to Brawl. I know it's on Amazon and on Kindle. Where are some of the other platforms that the book is available?
That's it right now. It's on Amazon. Yep, it's on Amazon. And you can get it the ebook through Kindle, which is also through Amazon. But here I have a copy of the book. I'll show it here.
Nice.
It's
Very
the
cool.
cover.
Great
Yeah.
cover. Great cover. And how's it? When was it released?
2020, November of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how's it gone so far? Just from like a, thinking of it like from a business perspective.
From a business perspective, the launch was definitely the where the most sales happened.
Mhm.
The first few months, the sales have been fairly consistent. Not anything I'm gonna live off of, but fairly consistent. And going back to my mixtape CDs, I'm going selling books out my trunk too. So
Yeah. Well, that day you were at Henzo's, you were like,
yeah, I had a few books with me that day. Yep.
and that's it. It's just like what you said about, about your early days in sales. Like you just have to show up, and it's really like you're trying to make a connection with people. And there's also validation through third parties. So like Mike introduced you to the whole class, and anything that Mike says, we're like, yes, we'll do it. Like it might be like, jump off a bridge. We'd be like, all right, cool. If it's going to make my jujitsu better, okay, let's go. He told me the other day, because like we used to take his morning classes all the time. Like when everything was shut down, my wife didn't have to go into the school. She didn't have to be at a computer until like 9 o'clock. So her and I would wake up early, fly into the city, drive in real fast, take the tunnel, get, easy parking, do his classes and get back so she could be in front of the computer before everything kicked off. But then they went back to the building in September. So it kind of shook up our schedule, and we're not able to go there that much. And that's when I started doing MMA. And, I still take, I still do jiu-jitsu classes. I still take my classes like once a week at least. But I saw him the other day, and he was like, I was coming in and he was leaving. He was like, man, you've really gone to the dark side, haven't you? I was like, oh man, I'm just trying to make jiu-jitsu easier. That's it. Like, I just want you, because jiu-jitsu is like the long-term investment, right? Like I can do that for like I got maybe another year of MMA in me before it's just like, can't do it anymore. These guys are beating the piss out of me. They're all like 20 years younger than me, but it's fantastic. But
that's awesing. That's awesome. You're doing it. It's gonna help you jiu-jitsu. It will.
It would, no, absolutely. But just, you being, in front of us, and you're like, hey, I got a book and it's about this. And I'm like, shit, I got a podcast that talks about this. Like, boom, here we go. And now we've done the networking, and it reaches, just as a framework. I know you know this, but just for anybody listening, it's like thinking like, man, I want to write a book. I want to do this. I want to get my idea. I want to do these things. Like it's really important that you get in front of people, and not just digitally. Like I'm sure you're doing some digital marketing and this. Sure. Are you doing any kind of paid marketing for it, or are you just relying like largely on like social media and things like that?
It's mostly social media. I did some paid advertising through Amazon, but I haven't gone down that rabbit hole really extensively. I may in the future, but mostly it's been grassroots marketing, social media, getting in front of people. The opportunity to get down to Henzo's, I hopped on that because Mike was the one who actually suggested, bring your book down and, I'll let you talk about it after the class. And I said, hell yeah.
That's
so, things like this where I'm just finding, getting lucky, right? Where opportunity meets preparation, and just networking and trying to get it in front of as many people as I can. I wouldn't be opposed to traveling, to other gyms out of state and help promoting the book and doing things where I can get in front of more people. But it's also something that I think I'm going to pursue by writing more books, and it could lead to more opportunities. So it's something I really enjoyed, and I think the book can help people. And as long as it gets in front of people, and if somebody gets something out of it, it's making me happy. That's the point of the book.
Yeah. I think that format of just like going to gyms and taking your book, I mean, it's like, a double win. You get to train and meet new people. And I mean, pretty much everybody that trains jiu-jitsu has a job or their own business. And it's like, it's gonna help you in some way. So you get to train, you get to promote and probably sell your book. And that I would do that full time. I would just make that a full-time gig.
That's could awesome. Be.
No, I love it. Great. My goal, like with all things now, is just to like do more jiu-jitsu. When everybody's like, so why are you doing this? Like, why this move with the restaurant or with this business? Or I'm like, I just want more time for more jiu-jitsu. That's really all it comes down to.
Absolutely. I'm in the same mindset, my friend. When life gets shitty and, there are all those days when it just feels like everything's falling apart, it's like I gotta go train.
I'm
And
like a
then
crack
everything
feed.
will
I'm
fit
like, I
again,
need a class, man. Shit.
Yeah, it's funny how jujitsu has that effect on us, but it gives us so much. Um, it makes everything else in life seem unimportant, or not as important as when you're on the mats trying to choke somebody, trying not to be choked, and then being able to have that bond that you build with people
Mm,
in that setting. And then you realize everybody's going through something.
yeah.
We can deal with this.
Right.
That's what
And
jiu-jitsu does.
exactly. And like like you said, and you even pointed out at the beginning, talking about letting anger and emotion creep in, and that's when, as business owners, you make some big mistakes too, those knee-jerk responses because you're pissed. And it's just like, you got to put that aside. And a great way to do that, I mean, I've been many times where like I get to the restaurant in the morning, all hell is breaking loose, and I'm like, there's a noon class and I'm
Yep.
going. and I'm just like, these problems
Yeah.
will wait. Everybody's like, I need a response. I'm like, you need to wait.
Right.
I'm like, you can either fight me or you can let me go fight them and come back and talk to you like a normal human being.
Right.
And that just comes down to my own self-awareness, knowing that I have a propensity for temper and like doing stupid shit. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, 10,000 comments. It's like 9,999. You got one more to go. We're almost done, so you better do it quick. But yeah, you go in and you like actually fight for your life. And most of the time we give like a little bit too much credit to some of those problems, right? We're like, this is going to fuck everything up. And like, no, it really actually isn't. It's not what you want right now. And you come out of jiu-jitsu and you're like, what was I pissed about before? Hey, what's up, man? It's like, hey, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Here we go.
Andrew's our biggest fan.
Thank you, Andrew. No, he is, man. He's the dude. And it's just a great way to displace that anger, and bring in, like I mentioned earlier, that honesty where you just like spent this hour and a half, like getting to know yourself better and being more honest with yourself about what you're capable of, what your goals really are. All those things come into play when you're in a jiu-jitsu class, and then you take that into, hopefully your living situation isn't such that you need to defend your physical presence so much that you need jiu-jitsu just to survive, but it will be there for you if that happens too. But I think really the big payoff is that mental clarity, and the fights are real. They're just often not physical, right? The train these days, though, my God, I'm on the train. I'm on my way to Henzo's, and like, dude's getting wild, and he's like either directing it at me or directing it. The other day, it was like this crazy lunatic was like messing with this kid, and the dad wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to blast you. Like, if you touch that kid, I'm going to blast you. I'm like, but I don't want to because you smell, and I want to go get the other smell. I want the salt and vinegar, not that shit. But I was literally like, I'm about to knock this guy to the ground, and I'm going to have to mount him. And he smelled awful. And I was just like, I'll just shower before I train. Like that was going through my head. I just took a deep breath and I was like, here we go. And he walked away. It didn't happen, but I was just like,
good. Yeah. I don't miss the train. I do not miss riding the train.
It's bad now. I mean, I've been in New York for almost 20 years. It's never been like this. This is special, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if if he actually has a pair, and we'll do something about it.
Yeah, I've been out of New York since the early 2000s now, and I've been in Connecticut now, so I'm not too far, but about 2 hours right into Manhattan, hour and a half into the Bronx. But I always, driving into the Bronx, I see the skyline, and I'm like, oh, this is home. But then I'm there for a couple hours, and I'm like, get me the hell out of here.
Time to go.
Time to go.
You go to your favorite restaurant, and then you get the check, and it's like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Where are you training at these days?
So I train up in Hartford, Connecticut, at a gym called Underdog Mixed Martial Arts. I actually teach at that gym 2 days a week. And I train at a gym in Tolland, Connecticut called Secret Pages. So shout out to John Gagney at Secret Pages, my coach, Rafael Quinones, and his coach, who was my original coach, Fabiano Tellis, who I've gotten all my belts from. So
Nice.
I'm lucky to have gotten all my belts from the same coaches.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rare these days, especially so many schools closed, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. The place that I started at, it's gone. The owners moved out of the city. So
That sucks.
yeah, it sucks. But, we regrouped. We were, a lot of people were orphaned. So I started training at Henzo's like deep into the still like the heart of the pandemic, like late 2020, early 2021. And it was like a bunch of orphans. It was either a bunch of guys that had trained with John and he had just left and they were like, where's my instructor? Or a bunch of guys that were like Shaolins or Marcelos or wherever. And they were just like, yeah, our place closed. So we were all just like, it was like Annie,
Yeah.
hard knock life.
I've been there. I've had my coaches leave and come back, and I'm lucky, like I said, to have gotten my belts through them. But it could have gone a different direction, totally.
Right.
And but I've always been at that gym Underdog because that's where they started. My original coaches started.
Gotcha.
And so I'm lucky to have kept that connection as well, and kind of have this balancing act of going between gyms to kind of keep my training as a black belt. I need to keep my training, but also be able to disperse some of my knowledge teaching at the gym that I started at, Underdog. So I have a good balance right now going on with my jiu-jitsu, and I'm trying to get down to Henzo's more often too, because Mike is a phenomenal coach and teacher, and I just want to get more his magic. So
yeah, definitely.
I'll be heading down to see him more.
Man, if we're there, let's get a round in.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be there more often.
Good. We got one more. This is a great question, actually, from Andrew. Don't some MMA fighters smell intentionally? I'll let you take a stab first at this one because I have a response.
That is a good question. I never thought of that. I could see it as a tactic, right, to throw an opponent off.
There's a couple guys at Henzo's that it has to be purposefully because it's just awful. And it's like the beginning of class. I'm like, dude, it's morning. Right. Like you smell awful. And it's often the most menacing guys, the guys that really like are going at it and they just stink. And you're just like, God, not only are you like mean and good, but you fucking smell. And they wear like the weird clothes too, Andrew. They wear the stuff where their package was a little, I'm like, whoa. Just submit me. Get it over with. Let's get this moving right along. Go find a new partner. Yeah, I think there's a couple of them that definitely enjoy it. And unfortunately, there's a couple guys, man, that just they got some stank BO. And it's just like, as soon as you slap hands, it's just all over you. And you're just like, fuck.
Right. Yeah. Tap.
Yeah. Tap. Got me with the nose bar. What'd you say? He said, I think it was Rogan that said that in an interview. Yeah, no, there's got to be some dudes that just come out stank, just like pits up. They're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God. Oh,
yeah. I know a few. I do know a few.
Yep. Every gym has those guys who are just like, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I get a little spray in my gi. I'll be like,
yeah. Thank God for showers in the gyms, right? Shout out to all the gyms that have showers. You're doing a good job.
It's a big deal.
That's a big deal. It is a big deal. That's a big deal. I trained at gyms with no showers. That's no fun.
Same. So before we close, just want to give a shout out to your businesses and your books. So F.I.T.E Fit is it's like a consultation company essentially.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. Consultation, wellness, self-defense classes, fitness classes, encouraging healthier living through martial arts is the theme of the company. It's F.I.T.E Fit, fun inspired training experience. That's what F.I.T.E stands for. It's an acronym. So F.I.T.E Fit, F.I.T.E Fit. And you can find it on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel and a website. The website is joinfightfit.com. So join FITEfit.com. and you can also there's also a link to my book on the website.
And then Amazon is the pretty much the main, Amazon and Kindle are the main places for the book right now.
Yes, sir. Yep. So Amazon is the main place to buy the book right now. I may put it on other platforms, but it's because I publish it through Amazon. It's just a natural thing to just sell it through Amazon.
And they're number one bookseller on the planet right now. It's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, that's how they started, right? It's a bookseller.
And the book is called Born to Brawl.
Born to Brawl. Yep.
Yeah. Very cool.
And who knows? I may be coming to a gym near you if you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner. The traveling book promotion is a great idea. So you put that bug in my ear. I think I might pursue that.
And hoodies.
I'm
a sucker. I'm a sucker for hoodies. I'm like, you got a hoodie? Shit, how much? Fuck. All right, let's do it anyways.
I have about 7. I counted the other day. It's like I'm a little excessive with hoodies and gis. Hoodies and gis.
Oh my god. Yo, Renzo just put out a new gi, and it's like a New York City gi. It's like all the stuff. It's got like all the. It's got on the inlay. It's got like all the train lines and stuff. And I was like, ooh, and I was like, don't. And I resisted so far, but I was in the lobby yesterday, putting my shoes on. I looked at it. I was like, you will be mine one day. The last thing I need is another fucking gi. I have more hoodies than you, but I have more gis than I have hoodies. It's bad. It's bad. And like my whole family trains, like all 3 of my daughters and my wife, and there's fucking gis everywhere. Like everywhere.
I love it.
Got That's pink gis, got light blue, we got white, got everything.
That's awesome. So you got your kids training too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to teach kids classes, so they were my older 2 trained 6 days a week. We were relentless. Yeah, and then everything shut down. They did some classes at Renzo's. They did some Upper West Side classes.
Okay.
But what they miss the most, and you alluded to it earlier, community is a huge part of why people stay in training. This is hard. All these things are going on, and you're just like, man, I don't know. But when you're there with your boys and your friends, and you create these bonds, and you push each other, you expect each other to be there, and that's what gets your ass. That's what gets your ass in there sometimes. And for them, they're like, man, I love training, but I don't like these people. I don't know these people. They don't live where we live, and all this stuff. It's like it was hard. So one's doing fencing, the other one's doing soccer, but they'll get back to it. They're young still. They have plenty of time, and I'm a big advocate for just like keeping them around it and keeping it fun. They train sometimes down in my studio with me, and there's mats just in our apartment, and they know if like I'm sitting on the mats and you walk by, I'm going for an ankle pick or something. You are not walking by without an attempt, and I'll suck your ass in real quick, and then it's on.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Andrew said, thank you both for this conversation. Got to run. Much love.
Thanks,
Same,
Andrew.
Andrew. Thank you. And I have to run as well. And I know Julian's a busy dude. So check him out. Julian Rivera. Look up F.I.T.E Fit on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then the book is Born to Brawl. You can find it on Amazon and on the Kindle app. Highly, highly recommend it. If you're in martial arts, if you're not in martial arts, if you're in business, if you got a job, if you got kids or relationships, it's going to help you. It's going to give you some insight. And any of those things. It's an easy read and it's cheap, $15. It'd be a sound investment. Track the ROI on that 15. I guarantee you it's going to pay off.
You'll get your money back.
Yep, definitely.
You'll get your money back.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this. Great conversation. And look forward to finishing the book. And like I said, we could literally do an episode on each chapter. I'd love to get back on and talk Mike Jarmillo.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear your feedback on that chapter when you get to it. That's the one I get the most positive feedback on. So I'm really
telling. Hey, we're onto something. We're onto something.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Let's do this again.
We will for sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. The rest of you, thank you for tuning in. stay tuned for the next episode. I'm not going to give any details away, but there's some cool shit coming down the pipe. We will see you soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Peace out.
Peace.